Africa Democracy Radio.
Sheka muna a Nigeria.
Ku saurari WADR.
Benegana ko hangadam WAD.
Liberia with West Africa Democracy Radio.
Je suis à Dakar au Sénégal et j'écoute la WADR 94.9 FM.
Benegana wa Kilsime WADR. Le année West Africa Democracy.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
We are West Africa Democracy Radio.
94.9 FM.
Dakar, Senegal. It's you speaking.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Freetown. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. First startup stories. Sierra Leone emerges as new drug trafficking route in West Africa following seizure of 30 tons of cocaine. Togo hosts a high-level review meeting of African mediators over persistent violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Nigerian government and European Union signed partnership agreement to combat illegal fishing, and Liberia secures $125 million from the World Bank for digital and energy infrastructure.
With support from this project, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Chad, and Togo formed a partnership to build lasting, high-quality energy infrastructure.
Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Glad to have you join us. Newslink begins first with a focus on a new report which highlights West Africa's growing significance in the global cocaine trade. Published on Monday, the report also states Sierra Leone's emergence as a major transit point for shipment headed to Europe. According to the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crimes, publisher of the report, the country has become an important part of a trafficking route that was previously not well understood. These findings follow a record-breaking drug seizure in early May when authorities intercepted a cargo ship originating from Sierra Leone that was carrying over 30 tons of cocaine. Imo Edit has the rest of the details.
The study of the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime provides new insight into how cocaine is trafficked from West Africa onward to European markets. According to the investigation, traffickers are increasingly using Sierra Leone as a storage point before shipping cocaine to Europe aboard small cargo vessels. Researchers say this method is becoming more common. The report cites data from the European Center for Maritime Analysis and Operations showing that the average size of cocaine shipments seized along West African routes more than doubled between 2024 and 2025. Investigators say they have identified several voyages similar to the one intercepted in May and also uncovered alleged links to the network of Dutch drug trafficker Jos Lejeka. The authors conclude that the seizure of more than 30 tons of cocaine reflects the growing confidence of criminal networks in the ability to move large shipments to Europe without detection. They warn that the record hold may represent only a small fraction of the cocaine currently being trafficked through the region.
Imoedit filed that report. More on transnational crimes. Nigeria is seeking to strengthen efforts against illegal fishing and other maritime crimes through a new European Union-backed program valued at €59 million. The initiative is expected to support sustainable fisheries management, improve ocean governance, and protect marine resources across West Africa. Our correspondent Yechenu Sasitu reports from Abuja.
The federal government says it is ready to leverage the West Africa Sustainable Ocean Program known as WASOP to combat illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing in Nigerian waters and across the Gulf of Guinea. Minister of Marine and Blue Economy Adegboyega Oyetola disclosed this during a meeting with the European Union Ambassador to Nigeria, Gauthier Mignon, in Abuja. According to the minister, illegal fishing continues to threaten marine ecosystems, food security, and the livelihoods of coastal communities that depend on fishing for survival. He said Nigeria is seeking greater international cooperation, improved surveillance systems, and stronger enforcement mechanisms to address the challenge. Officials also say cooperation with international partners should extend beyond piracy to include environmental crimes, human trafficking, and illegal fishing activities that undermine economic growth and regional stability. For his part, the European Union ambassador reaffirmed the bloc's commitment to supporting Nigeria and other West African countries in promoting sustainable ocean governance and strengthening maritime cooperation. The program is expected to improve coordination among coastal states, enhance fisheries management, and protect marine ecosystems across the region. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
Elsewhere, Lomé is hosting the biannual review meeting of the crisis facilitation process in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and the Great Lakes region. The meeting, which began on Sunday, June 7, 2026, is dedicated to reviewing the progress of the African Union's roadmap and assessing the situation on the ground. All parties and states involved in the mediation process are attending the review meeting. Francis Boniface has more details in this report.
As violence persists in Eastern DRC, participants are reviewing the guidelines established at the previous meeting held last January in Togo. These guidelines aim in particular to harmonize African initiatives to restore peace and stability to this part of the continent. Faced with the still warring situation, representatives reaffirmed the need for collective mobilization by states of the region, the African Union, and all international partners to support stabilization efforts. These representatives are from the East African Community, the Southern African Development Community, and the International Conference on Great Lakes region, and partners in the process. According to them, this mobilization remains essential in a context marked by both persistent insecurity and the resurgence of the Ebola epidemic in certain areas of the DRC. Members of the facilitators panel present in Lomé include former President Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria, Catherine Samba Panza of the Central African Republic, and former President of Ethiopia, Saleh Work Zewde. Alongside these high-profile personalities, Farouk Yasimbe, the African Union's appointed mediator and President of the Council of Ministers of Togo, will coordinate efforts to find a lasting solution to the crisis in Eastern DRC, which has killed thousands of people and displaced millions, including women and children.
That was Francis Boniface with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now to the Central Sahel region, precisely Mali and the Defense and Security Forces have executed a synchronized series of airstrikes targeting verified logistical bases and terrorist hideouts. The operation was carried out over the weekend through the establishment of tightly restricted military forest zones off limits to civilian access. Usman Umar completes the story.
In a statement, the General Staff of the Armed Forces said several airstrikes were carried out over the weekend following surveillance and reconnaissance missions. In the Gao region and Doro, Malian military aircraft first targeted a hideout where, according to the army, about 20 armed fighters were present. Shortly afterwards, a truck carrying logistical supplies was identified and destroyed in the same area. The military also reported striking another position consisting of a tent and several motorcycles, some of which were equipped with weapons. Further west in the Kayes region, a major fallback base was located in the Sandere area. According to the statement, airstrikes on the site neutralized about 30 fighters and destroyed several means of transport used by armed groups. The operations reflect the authorities' determination to maintain an offensive presence on the ground. They come just days after the government strengthened its security measures. Under a ministerial order, nearly 40 forests across the country have been designated as military interest zones, including the Ouagadougou forest near the Mauritanian border. Access to these areas has now been prohibited for civilians. Authorities say the forests are regularly used by armed groups as hideouts, assembly points, and transit corridors. Within these zones, the military plans to enhance its surveillance and intervention capabilities to restrict the movement of fighters and strengthen control on the territory.
Usman Umar there with that report filed by our Bamako correspondent Aliu Cham. Let's now focus on major updates about the safety and repatriation of West African citizens abroad. The Ghanaian government has completed the emergency evacuation of nearly 1,000 of its nationals who were heavily affected by the recent wave of xenophobic violence in South Africa. The final batch of 342 evacuees touched down in Accra on Sunday, bringing the total number of airlifted returnees to 979. State officials assured the traumatized citizens of immediate reintegration packages and socio-economic support to help them rebuild their lives. From Accra, Nadede Tete reports.
The last group of Ghanaian nationals evacuated from South Africa have arrived safely in Accra, marking the end of a three-phase government rescue operation. The 342 returnees touched down at the Accra International Airport on Sunday afternoon, joining 637 others who arrived in two earlier batches over the past week. Some of the returnees recounted their experiences.
They were stressed, and that is why I left. I have lived with them, and I know when they are serious and when they are not. So even when I was telling some of the colleagues, let's go, they didn't take it seriously.
Got to a time because of the introduction of this xenophobic activity. In fact, I was not feeling comfortable on the field. Why? Because my fellow colleagues, South Africans, were maltreated us.
Government officials led by Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs James Achekweson and Deputy Chief of Staff Nanoye Bampuado were at the airport to welcome the returnees, many of whom expressed relief and gratitude after fleeing xenophobic violence in parts of South Africa. Addressing the evacuees, Mr. Kwesen described the attacks as regrettable and urged Ghanaians not to allow the incidents to define relations between Africans.
I want to believe that this is an isolated case. Even though it has happened before, I strongly believe that South Africa will come around and be part of the African community.
Meanwhile, Deputy Chief of Staff Nanoye Bampuado has announced a package of social interventions including access to jobs aimed at helping the evacuees settle back home. The evacuation exercise was ordered by President John Dramani Mahama following reports of renewed xenophobic attacks targeting Africans in South Africa. Government says all 979 returnees have now been registered and will be monitored through a reintegration program designed to support their transition back into life in Ghana. For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
In the Gambia, health authorities have unveiled the country's first ever national food and drug quality control laboratory, marking a major step forward in efforts to safeguard public health. The facility will enable local testing of medicines and food products, reducing dependence on costly overseas laboratories while strengthening the fight against counterfeit and substandard pharmaceuticals. The launch comes nearly 4 years after the 2022 acute kidney injury tragedy, when contaminated cough syrups were linked to the death of dozens of Gambian children, prompting renewed calls for stronger drug regulation and quality control. WADR Sang Donald Mendy reports from Banjul.
The laboratory is mandated to carry out systematic testing of pharmaceuticals, food products, cosmetics, water, and other health-related items to ensure that imported and locally distributed goods meet national and international standards. Speaking at the inauguration, President Adama Barrow described the facility as a major milestone for the Gambia's healthcare system. He said it will strengthen the country's capacity to conduct its own quality testing.
This laboratory now empowers us not only to test and verify food items and medicines, but also act on our own terms in accordance with acceptable standards. The Food Safety and Quality Authority, the Medicine Control Agency, and other in-country regulatory bodies will be able to carry out their mandates more efficiently.
Officials say the laboratory is equipped with modern technology capable of detecting harmful substances and contaminants, while also verifying the safety and effectiveness of medicine before they reach consumers. For decades, the Gambia relied on laboratories abroad, including in India and Ghana, to test medicines and food products, often resulting in lengthy delays. Speaking on behalf of the development partners, World Bank resident representative Mata Toure said the facility would play a critical role in safeguarding public health and strengthening regulatory oversight.
A strong quality control system saves lives. It helps detect substandard and falsified products, supports timely regulatory action, strengthens market surveillance, and protects families from preventable harm.
The inauguration comes in the wake of the 2022 acute kidney injury crisis, which killed dozens of children after they consumed contaminated cough syrups. The new facility is the country's first dedicated laboratory for the testing and quality control of medicines and food products. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sangdana Mende, reporting from Banjul.
In Senegal, political reactions continue to trail the re-election of Ousmane Sonko as leader of the ruling Pastef party. Sonko secured a unanimous mandate during the party's first ever ordinary Congress held over the weekend in Diamniadio, just outside the capital, Dakar. But beyond the celebration, attention is increasingly turning to what comes next for the influential political figure. Sonko was recently removed from the post of Prime Minister by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, a longtime ally whose relationship has become under growing public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Sonko's position as Speaker of the National Assembly remains the subject of legal and political controversy, with opposition lawmakers challenging the constitutionality of his return to the legislature. But what does this renewed grip on the party mean for Senegal's political future, and what impact could it have on the balance of power at the top of the state? Stay with us as we unpack these questions in our guest interview segment coming up shortly. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Sierra Leone emerges a new drug trafficking route in West Africa following seizure of 30 tons of cocaine. Togo hosts a high-level review meeting of African mediators over persistent violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Nigerian government and European Union signed partnership agreement to combat illegal fishing. Still ahead, Liberia secures $125 million from the World Bank for digital and energy infrastructure. We have the guest interview segment and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, turning to economic development, Liberia has secured a major boost for its development agenda after signing a $125 million financing agreement with the World Bank. The funding is set to support key national priorities, including the expansion of digital connectivity, the rollout of renewable solar energy systems in rural communities, and the rehabilitation of crucial road network, particularly in the country's southeastern corridor. Authorities say the investment is expected to strengthen infrastructure, improve access to essential services, and drive long-term economic growth across Liberia. WADR's Abraham Parker reports.
The financing agreements were signed during a ceremony that also marked the commissioning of Liberia's newly completed 20-megawatt solar power plant. Speaking at the event, World Bank country manager Georgia Wadr described the financing package as a significant investment in Liberia's future, emphasizing that the projects are designed to strengthen economic resilience, expand opportunities for businesses and communities.
Financing for this plant is from the Regional Emergency Solar Power Intervention Project, financed by the IDA Regional Program, with support support from this project, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Chad, and Togo formed a partnership to build lasting, high-quality energy infrastructure.
For his part, Finance and Development Planning Minister Augustine Gaffon said the financing will support the government's development agenda by addressing key infrastructure projects.
First one is a 50 million West Africa Regional Digital Integration Program. Wadr will help us to expand broadband access and digital connectivity in this country. This RESPRA project, additional finance of 57 million. It will help us to expand Mankofe Hydro Power Plant.
President Joseph Boakai, who witnessed the signing, described infrastructure developments as essential to his administration's effort to drive economic transformation and improving the living conditions of Liberians. The latest financing package is expected to play a pivotal role in strengthening the country's digital economy, expanding clean energy access, and enhancing regional connectivity. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening focuses on the re-election of Ousmane Sonko as president of the major opposition political party PASTEF. Despite his election as president of PASTEF, concerns are rising over the next move by Sonko, who was dismissed from the position of prime minister by his longtime friend Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who is president of Senegal. Even as Speaker of Senegal's National Assembly, Sonko still faces a legal challenge by some opposition members of parliament who term his reinstatement as unconstitutional. Our guest is Amadou Kamara Gay, a Senegalese political analyst who provides analysis of this growing political situation.
So it is something unprecedented in Senegal, because it never happened. Diomaye is a president elected by default. It was not Diomaye who was chosen, it was Sonko who was chosen. But unfortunately, Sonko couldn't run. That's why he decided to put Diomaye as his candidate. After we have seen what happened, I think they have many divergences in terms of how to solve the economic crisis, because Ousmane Sonko think that we do not need to get another loan. We don't need to discuss with IMF. And Diomaye and some of his allies think that the way that Senegal only can solve this problem is to be in contact with IMF. So this is a great difference that the two people have. So before 2029, I think there is an election in 2027. It is a local election. It will be the real test. This local election is scheduled for January 2027. And yesterday, when we were watching the Ousmane Sonko meeting in Diamniadio, he even asked President Diomaye to sign the decree for the local election. It means that they are ready to go to election. And he asked Diomaye, if you are ready, sign this decree, and it will be the first challenge between the two farmer brothers.
Do you foresee any undermining posture by Ousmane Sonko towards Diomaye Faye's government in the next few years before we head to a major election?
No, I don't think that. And Ousmane Sonko has already clarified that PASTEF is a ruling party and PASTEF is the opposition party, because we haven't seen any member of PASTEF in the government. There is no minister. All the ministers who decided to stay in the government have been kicked out from PASTEF party, like Moussa Bala Fofana, like Yankoba Jeme. All of them today are no more member of PASTEF party. So it is clear they cross a red line, because Sonko explained it when he was discussing with Diomaye. Diomaye proposed him 7 ministers, and for him, it's not normal as a ruling party to have 7 ministers out of 30 in the government. But also, there are also some positions, some high-ranking positions that we can see is still led by some member of PASTEF. I can quote the CEO of the port of Dakar, Wali Boyan, which is a collaborator, one of the nearest collaborators of Sonko. Sadi Lukaita, all of them are still in the government, even if they are not minister, but they are running a very high position in the government. This means that PASTEF is both the ruling party and also the opposition. It is something unprecedented.
We have some opposition lawmakers at the parliament who have filed complaint with the Constitutional Council against Sonko's reinstatement as an MP. It also comes at a time when Sonko has a legal battle of libel against him at the High Court. What do you think will happen as these complaints are still on the neck of Sonko, who could be a potential candidate for 2029 presidential election against his longtime friend, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye?
Very difficult for me to predict what will happen. What is clear is that Usman Sonko didn't dismiss as an MP. He decided to suspend his mandate of MP and get it back. And that was after he was elected as the president of the National Assembly. He is now an elector, and if he's an elector, he can run for election.
That was Amadou Kamara Gay, a Senegalese political analyst, on our guest interview segment. All right, for sports, we continue with our focus on the African national teams that qualified for the World Cup, which kicks off this Thursday, June 11th. This evening, we turn the spotlight on the Senegal national team, led by its star forward Sadio Mane. He will be playing his second World Cup, and it could be, well, his last. Sadio Mane, the final lap, is a report by Imo Edit.
He has left a lasting mark on the history of the Senegal national team through his performance, commitment and class. At 33, Sadio Mane continues to embody the soul of the Senegalese side. A key pillar of the Teranga Lions, his game combines speed, skill and a sharp eye for goal. Since making his debut after 2010, he has steadily risen through the ranks, helping Senegal secure its first Africa Cup of Nations title in 2022 in Cameroon and a second one last February in Morocco. Mane also featured at the 2018 World Cup with Senegal. Although the team was eliminated in the first round, he later missed the 2022 World Cup in Qatar due to injury. Today, his influence goes far beyond the pitch. A natural leader, he inspires his teammates through professionalism and humility. More than just a senior player, he has become an icon of Senegalese football. As he prepares to play in his second World Cup in the coming days, this could mark his final appearance for his beloved Senegal, a team he has led to the summit of African football and onto the global stage. Following the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco earlier this year, Mane hinted that his World Cup could be his last with the Teranga Lions. He says, "I've come to the end, to my limit, so it has to be accepted. Personally, I would have loved to play for another 20 years, but unfortunately, I can't. So I believe it's time for the next generation to step up, and that future is already secure. We have a great team, with young players coming through, so that's a good thing. They will always find their path and write their own history. There's Hassan Diao, there's Ilman Jai, there's Ismail Assar, they're all there. So I believe the future is in good hands." In Dakar, where fans are still struggling to accept his decision, many hope to see Mane continue playing for Senegal for years to come. His potential international retirement after the World Cup is also difficult for his teammates and the Senegalese coaching staff to accept. Head coach Pape Thiaw speaks. He says, "We need him and Senegal needs him, and we hope we will still have many more years with him, because someone like that doesn't come around all the time. You have to make the most of it. But I hope this won't be his last. There are still other competitions ahead, so we will see how it goes." While many hope the team's all-time top scorer might reconsider, Senegal will still count on him for the World Cup starting in a few days. Sadio Mane is not just a player, he is a symbol of inspiration, perseverance and success for the Senegalese and African football.
That was Sadio Mane, the final lap report by Emo, edited on our sports news segment. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu Ju for the technical assistance. Continue to interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronica Njai. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverside County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.